Greetings, programs. Welcome to the grid. I am Sark, and today's game is Dark Grapes in 3D Studio Max. Real grapes are very challenging for 3D software because they do a lot of funny things with light. The light doesn't just bounce off the surface and come back to your eye like it would with a simpler object. The light goes through the grape. It's a little bit translucent. It can affect the shadow color. It has some reflections. It actually has layers of reflections. So, and especially with these darker grapes like Concords, or what I learned these are Trollinger grapes, they have something called a noble rot, or a noble mold is sometimes called. And it actually is a desirable symbiotic effect where it improves the sweetness of the grape. If you harvest it at the right time, and if you wait too long, it just eats the grape. But this is kind of an interesting thing that occurs in nature, and you can see that the surface then is very irregular, and where this mold is, you have a more diffused result, I guess, and where it isn't, you have like a shiny black surface. So there's a lot going on, and it's very difficult to simulate accurately. You can do so with a tool like V-Ray. V-Ray lets you, well, it actually lets you cheat. So it has all kinds of tricks for achieving the desired look, which is great. I highly recommend V-Ray. The problem is it's quite expensive, and most students don't have access to it or have a difficult time getting access to it. So we're not going to use V-Ray. We're going to push the art renderer to its limits and see how good we can get with our true physics simulation, which is admittedly more limited, if that makes sense. So that out of the way, here are my current results. I don't think they're perfect, but I'm much happier with them than I was earlier, so I'm ready to show it off a little bit. I took a render at a relatively high resolution, so I said 1920 across, and then whatever my aspect was, I had it locked. So this turned out to be 1920 by 1521, but the idea is that it would be more or less an HD render. I set the quality in the art render settings. Let me see if I have those open. Yep, I set the quality to extra high, 40 decibels of measurement. Curious why they chose decibels as the unit. I'm sure there's a really good reason. 40, and I left no time limit on. I was just curious to see how long it would go. I left the fast path tracing on. I wasn't going to go really nuts. And then I enabled noise filtering, but I brought it down to like 2%. Because really with that many checks against the accuracy, you don't need the noise filtering anymore. So this is the result. It took about 3,000 passes. It took a little over 15 hours for this old third generation, mid-tier Ivy Bridge processor to take a crack at it. But I'm pretty happy with results. Where before at lower draft quality settings we would get like bright green pixels. There's like a kind of green pixel a few places. Those have sort of been worked into the overall blend of things. So here you can see where a caustic effect is occurring. Light's hitting this grape, and in the places where the grape is thinner relative to the direction of the light, it's coming through and casting a colored shadow. But it's also blending with the color of the wood below. This is all taking this all takes more passes, basically, to get the desired result, rather than the blunter results that you get at a lower draft quality setting. So, what worked? Well, I can see that my scene's very vibrant. That's good. I have no difficulty then getting the brightness that I want in the scene if I play around with some of these subsurface scattering tools. The composition's good because I stole the composition from a very good painting that we used as reference, so can't complain about that. the results are actually pretty realistic, at least from the subsurface scattering. Like you're getting, the subtle reflections of like, oh, there's a little green on the edge of this grape as a consequence of the light coming through these, and even our metal surface seems to be behaving more or less like pewter or tin. So not unhappy about that. I think the wood actually looks pretty good for just a texture that we grabbed off CG Textures and set up in about 3 seconds. So all that's great. What's not working? Well, it's very vivid. And a part of me looks at this and says, yeah, but that's like a cartoon. Right, so if we want a more photographic result, we may have to look at some color grading in the end. We may have to like desaturate this a little bit, darken things a little, or just improve the complexity of our lighting. We do only have a single light source right now, and that may be some of our woes. We do have the light bouncing around from the subsurface scattering. It helps a lot, but it's probably not a substitute for a more realistic lighting environment. So down the road, in another video or two, we'll probably set up a, what are they called? We'll set up an environmental sort of photo reference for reflections. What else is not working? We should probably swap out this background image. I've been, stealing this painter's work for too long. It's time to finish this off. Put the bottom of the table in there. So down the road we need to do that. What else is not working? Well, I noticed that our mesh resolution could use a little work. Even the peach seems a little blocky in a few places, but you can really see it, especially on these grapes that have reflections on the edges. You can see how chunky they are. So probably just even the green ones. Let's see if I can find one that's in better focus. You can see it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can almost count the polygons. So I probably ought to go back through and just throw one more iteration of Turbo Smooth. What's the cost? It's already a 15-hour render at this resolution. It's not really going to be that much to quadruple the mesh in the grapes. The Noble Rot works though. Somehow I have achieved this look of this sort of dusty surface. So it may not be working perfectly realistically, but from a distance it gives the impression, and that's really what I wanted. So very happy about that. Oh, I missed a grape, so there's something to note. It's worth taking a larger render, taking a step back from your scene, and deciding what do you like, what don't you like, before you just keep mucking with settings. So that's it. That's my sort of self-critique at this stage. Let's look at my settings in case you would like to sort of get to this point and then see what you want to change. So I put a physical material. Actually, could I walk through all this? I could probably walk through all this. So I'm going to close this scene. I have the image saved. And I'm going to open the scene I started with. So let's just save this once more. I'll click open. And I'll open the scene from before. So here I have not painted the grapes yet. I'm going to open the material editor, get a fresh material, there we go. Okay, so it's going to be a physical material, we know that. Where am I going here? This, just under general physical material. We want to grab all these grapes, so hide the table, and yeah, that should be hide the bowls, I guess. This will just make them easier to select. Almost zoomed in there. So I do want to zoom in while I do this. I'm going to press the P key. Whoops. Uh-oh. Is that where they were? Now I'm paranoid. I'm going to reopen my scene. Like I bumped something off. first thing I'm going to do, once this all loads. Okay. It's like, seems a lot brighter than before. I'm going to press the P key to switch to my perspective view so I don't accidentally bump the camera. I'm going to right click on the table and hide it. Need them at the moment, hide them. Okay. Grab all our grapes. Hold the control key. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now I'm safe to zoom. I'm not going to bump my camera off course because it's already been locked. So let's just make sure we get every last one of these. You know you got them when they got that blue halo around them. Huh. Never did get that one. That one should probably be green. Hold on. Let's get all these and then make that one green. So I think I got them all. Definitely not that. Hold the Alt key to deselect. Okay. So all of these are going to be this color. And I'm just going to like throw a blue color on it real fast just to... Yeah, see? Missed one. Okay. So assign that. Go back to our camera view. Looks like we got everything except that one rogue grape, right? So let's go in here, grab this one that we never got, and make sure it's got the green grape texture. We already did all the work on that, so that should be good to go. Okay. So obviously, these are not the way we want these looking. Right, I've already got the material assigned. All we have to do is change the material. So I'm going to go into physical material. And we're going to change this to an advanced physical material. And time to go with all these settings. Alright, what I have written down is, I'll just show my notes. It doesn't hurt to show my notes. Okay. So I have written down that there to be a lavender blue for the base color. So probably a little dimmer. Maybe like a little more saturation, something like that. And then like maybe a touch more red. Okay. Pretty happy with that as a base color. Maybe want it a little darker, a little more saturated. Okay. Happy with that. It's not really like, it's not a periwinkle, right? It's like a darker periwinkle. That's the way of thinking about it. Where'd my notes go? That's the trouble of putting them over here. I can't read them in. No. Back to the other screen they go. Roughness, 0.7. These are going to be 1.0 strength on the base color. Okay, that's done. Down to reflections. We're using reflections this time around. We're going to have the white color set to 0.7. Okay, that much reflection. The metalness set to like 0.15. So we're just trying to get some effects out of this tool that really it's not quite designed for. So I'm going to use every trick I can think of. Roughness 0.7. Index of refraction, I don't know why, but for whatever reason, I think the index of refraction in this case should be more like water, so 1.33. Transparency, 0.3 is what I have. Leave that to white. The depth on the transparency, we're going to set to 0.5. Not checking the thin walled box. Subsurface scattering, absolutely need that. I'm going to set it to 0.7. I'm going to choose a color like a fuchsia almost. Not that crazy though. Maybe a little like that. Seems right to me. Next we're going to choose a scatter color, and this is going to be like almost a salmon. Somewhere between a salmon and a hot pink, right? Not too hot. This fuchsia probably wants to be a little more like there. A little towards the purple end of things. Okay. I think those look like my intended colors. What next? I'm going to set the depth on that to 10. That's fine, that's the default. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. It's worth playing with, but remember, if you're playing with these settings, you really got to check one variable at a time, and you should almost like keep a log, do a lot of low quality renders and thumbnail them next to each other and mark down their settings. Then you might achieve better results than I. Okay. Emission. Not a tool that should be used in this case if we were going for a hyper-realistic result, because emission generates light. But I found that just doing like 0.1 emission, now that is way too much, and then setting the luminance to 1 candle per meter squared. I think we used to measure things in foot candles in the United States, but candles per meter, it's kind of an interesting combination of measurements. Okay, because I'm pretty sure candles themselves are not metric. They're metric uses lux. Okay. And I want like a dark purple. So this is so little of a result. That it probably won't matter at all. But I thought I would do a little bit of that. See what we can get. In any case, it seemed to be working for me. I forget why. but you saw the final image, so if you thought the final image looked okay or looked towards what you were aiming for, then plug in my settings and then change them to your heart's content afterwards. Just know that emission is definitely one of the wackier choices I made. Okay, clear coat. I'm going to try and use the clear coat for my noble rot, for my mold. So I'm going to go to F10 and take a look at what this looks like now. Not at high settings. That would be crazy. We'll go down to like 10 dB, and we're going to filter the crap out of this up to like 75. It'll be fine. And you know that these results are going to be less than optimal. But I would just like to take a look at a before and after on this intended mold effect. So here's our grapes before. Coming to think of it, I could probably make them like shinier on this side and then less so on the rot side. But this is what I'm doing with them now. So you could see that was an extremely low render. Let's take it up to at least draft quality and see what we get. Getting a little more out of it all. You can see there's a real difference between the draft quality and the end results. So do not judge your scene by the draft quality alone. Okay. So, yeah. I think that mold effect is going to do the trick for us. I'm going to unhide everything again. Had some stuff hidden, so do that once more with the peach in the scene and the bowl in the scene. Yeah. They kind of felt weird floating there. So, looks pretty good. See what we can do with our mold. So I'm going to go to the clear coat, and I'm going to set the strength on the clear coat to like 0.5. I'm going to set the roughness of the clear coat much lower, right? No, actually I have it up at like 0.7. Okay, fine by me. Maybe the roughness of the base coat should be lower. I'm really tempted to try that, but obviously that's not the settings that I have recorded. Let's put those first, and then I'm going to try taking the roughness of the base coat down. I think that'll be more realistic. Okay. Index of refraction, default seems fine to me. The color of the clear coat we're going to mess with. Alright, so first it's going to affect the underlying color. Not too much, like 0.3, and a roughness of 0.7 here is fine by me. But the color here is not going to be white. We're going to put a swirl. This is the best way I know of achieving like what a cellular map or a smoke map might do for you without access to those. I'm going to make the colors black and white, so we'll just make the base color white, make the swirl color black, for where the mold will be and where it will not be. But why does it... This is very strange. I've not seen this before. There's like a... When did I create a... I just want to copy this down here. Copy. I'm not sure what I pressed. I must have hit some hotkey to make like a true like a PNG kind of result. What am I talking about? There's a word for that layer. Anyway, on we go. So for the swirl, I'm going to set the I think I'm going to set the swirl intensity to 1. I'm going to set the color contrast to like 2. Yeah. Right, but it's too harsh right now. Yarp, yarp, yarp. I wonder if I want to bring the constant detail up. I'm going to bring the constant detail up to like 8. See how that looks. Too much. Maybe down at 4 is where I wanted it. I definitely want this on an explicit Mac channel, and I forgot we're going to have to do that with the grapes, so that'll be a little bit of a chore, but shouldn't take us too long. Finally, there's something else we wanted. I want a little blur offset. Not a lot. It's very important, like 0.1 blur. Blur offset. 0.1. See how this looks. Blurred it too much. Okay, so 0.01. Yeah. All I wanted to do was soften up these edges a little bit. So that was the goal. That's achieved. There's my swirl effect. I'm kind of happy with it, and I'm going to copy paste this down to the subsurface scattering scale. Together with an instance, I think gets us where we want to go. Because once okay. I don't know if this is where we're going to go. I feel like some of these settings are just plain wrong. But let me take, each of these needs to have a UVW map, unfortunately. And it needs to be set to shrink wrap. So if you copy paste the UVW map onto all of them, it doesn't really work as intended. If you might have had all these set up to copy one another with a reference, that would have been the smart way. But here on this channel, sometimes we do the things the clumsy way. UVW map, shrink wrap, UVW map, shrink wrap. I'm just going to finish off these. And where's the shrink wrap? Okay. Let's take a render of that, see what the difference is between the grapes on the right and the grapes on the left. Well, even the grapes on the left got better. See if my UVW maps made a difference. Maybe not. Maybe they're fine without them. So let that go a few seconds longer. Let it achieve its smoothing. So here our grapes just have a little more complexity as intended. So that's kind of it. I have one more thing I want to try. I'm really curious if I just bring the roughness of the base color down to like 0.3. That's really crazy, right? Let's just take a go. I think it just makes them a little more reflective. It's really hard to tell at a low render setting, so you are going to have to take your renders at a higher level. But those are all my settings that I can currently remember. No guarantees, but if I think of anything else, I'll share it. Good luck. Have fun.